Kscope podcast 150. Thanks for being there. Billy Reeves here alongside me. Gavin Harrison from The Pineapple Thief, Porcupine Tree and King Crimson, and Bruce Soord from The Pineapple Thief, as we speak at length about the spirit of collaboration. Much to chew over, much to learn from this chat, and in the spirit of the title, the spirit of collaboration, as it's 150, a quick thanks to all the people that collaborate with me on this fantastic podcast. Lynn in the old days, my dear friend Scott Robinson, who of course has taken the podcast to higher levels and bigger audiences, the new boy Jamie at Kscope with a fresh pair of ears, and of course Johnny Wilkes, it was his idea in the first place, and Fred for facilitating. Right, before we speak to Gavin and before we speak to Bruce, here's The Pineapple Thief with one of my favourites from the Kscope catalogue, Nothing at Best. Nothing at Best from Somewhere. Here is Missing, The Pineapple Thief. Hi Gav, hi Bruce, thanks for joining me. I want to get an idea of a definition of collaboration. You two have done a lot of collaborating, both with each other and other people. So let's talk about the worst and the best things that you've experienced doing that. You first, Bruce. What's the best thing and the worst thing about collaborating with people, specifically as we've started off with essentially something from Someone Here Is Missing, when you were Lord Soord in control? And
well, that's right. Well, that's the thing. So for most of my career, I was Lord Soord and didn't collaborate at all. I did the Wisdom of Crowds thing with Jonas, but that wasn't so much a collaboration. It was more, I don't know, it was more of a session that we did together. So I think it was pretty much when I met Gavin that the true collaboration started. So I think the question, what's the best thing? The best thing is when you find someone who you can trust creatively, and then you witness ideas go much further than you could possibly imagine on your own. Right. And that's for me, that's an absolute definition of collaboration at its best. And that's what happened from the beginning. I mean, I don't want to blow too much smoke up Gav's ass at this stage, but when we met for Your Wilderness, things changed quite dramatically because there was more than one brain, a creative brain, and the sum of it was definitely, well, for me, it felt greater than the parts.
What's the worst thing about it?
I don't know. Do you know what? I honestly can't think. It's been such a smooth. I mean, I'm touching wood now, but it's been pretty smooth. We haven't really ever had any heated disagreements at all. There's been moments where people will say, "Oh, I prefer it like this," or "It should be like this," but there was never any bit where I think, "Oh no, collaboration is bad. I don't want to do it anymore." So I know it's a terrible answer.
So Gavin, can you define collaboration then?
Well, I think the definition of it is really when you find someone you're in tune with, where you're both on the same page and you have similar tastes. And what can be exciting about a collaboration is that the other person will suggest things or present things to you that are quite foreign, and you think, oh, I would never have thought of that, and it's very weird to me at the moment, but let me work on it, and it's so odd, I don't know what I'm going to do to it. And what I end up doing to it is something I would never have done if that hadn't been presented to me. And I like that a lot. I love it. Being a creative person, you love it when some other factor comes in and it draws something else out of you. Because when you work a lot on your own as a creative person, you can get very bored with your own stuff. And you're very familiar with all the things you've done before and all your pitfalls and all your little things that you like to do. So, for instance, when I met Bruce and we started writing together, he would send things to me which, I would never have written on my own. And then I would write things and send them back to him. And it all had a good positive experience in that, we both ended up writing something that we would never have done without each other. Okay. And it's very exciting when you start to sound different because someone else has presented you with something. I mean, the worst case is, well, then I just wouldn't call it a collaboration. I've tried writing with other people. Many times in sessions, people have said, could you come up for something? Could you invent something for this section? And I have, and they've said, oh no, I didn't like that at all. Well then, yeah, you're not on the same page. It's lovely when you meet someone who's on the same page as you and they make a suggestion and you think, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. That's exactly what I'd love to, wish I thought of that.
Actually, that reminds me actually of the early days of the Pineapple Thief, thinking of the worst times where we did try and do some collaborations, and the worst feeling is when you let someone else in and then in your heart that you could have done it better. And that's it's just a horrible feeling because it's your, I hate to say things like this, but when it's your art, man, you can't make any compromises. So when you invite someone to collaborate and you think, God, that's actually worse than it could, then if I did it on my own, then, well, one, it's a horrible feeling, and two, could be quite awkward.
The next track I was going to play was Thin Air by the dearly departed Anathema. Supported Porcupine Tree. Stephen produced their stuff, and you've talked about the upsides of collaboration, but I'm wondering if there's sometimes the friction is good, but obviously with a group like that, the friction was too much. They didn't survive COVID, essentially. How did the Pineapple Thief, how did you two, as creative people, survive COVID, and what are your memories of Anathema and the friction therein?
Well, actually, we survived COVID really well, to be honest, relatively speaking, because it didn't really change how we worked together, because we're lucky that we got our own studios and we work remotely anyway. But then I remember we all got together on a Zoom call and we said, right, well, nothing's happening, and we just released Versions of the Truth, and we thought, well, what are we going to do? We got to do something. We can't tour it. We had to cancel the tour, so we came up with the idea to do the Nothing But the Truth, the live thing, which is another story, but we managed to do it. So my memory of the lockdown and COVID is actually quite a positive one, because we probably were more productive than we've ever been. And then second question, my memory of Anathema, I've worked with them quite a bit doing sort of 5.1 mixes, and I remember playing with them at the Kscope night in Union Chapel. Yeah. I must confess, I only ever had positive experiences with them.
Yeah.
Danny was charming. Vinny came to my studio to have a listen to the Optimist 5.1. We went out, had a beer. It was lovely. I thought they were a lovely bunch of guys. So you obviously you don't know what it's like when you're in a tour bus together for 8
and
weeks.
related to each other as well. I wonder if that makes a difference. What about you, Gav? Then is it good sometimes to have yin and yang?
Of course. You can't have one without the other, but I mean, Anathema were a great bunch of guys. They did a lot of touring with Porcupine Tree.
Yeah.
They were pretty fiery with each other. I don't know if that's a brotherly thing, or their relationship, or struggling about getting, creative ideas pushed forward. Maybe when the creative group is more than two, it can start to get into a bit of a battle, and people trying to pull it in different directions and say, oh no, we should do my idea, no, we should do your idea. And not that I witnessed them ever having a fight, but I could tell their relationship was a lot more passionate and fiery than was going on with Porcupine Tree, for instance.
Face
Yeah, they seem to be sort of like trying to push towards something that was unattainable, and that always confused me and upset me hugely as well, because I really like them. I'm going to talk about Insurgentes next, if I may, Gavin, and Harmony Korine, probably, one of the classics from that. What's, there's sort of 2 or 3 different phases of Porcupine Tree, 2 of which, of course, feature you. Stephen Wilson is obviously a very, big figure in that band. Does he collaborate?
Well, he didn't used to very much until this new album.
Right.
Having said that, I did write quite a few songs with him over the years. There's various songs on various albums and B-sides and extra tracks, and so I knew we could get on quite well. But the whole part of the new Porcupine Tree album, the whole purpose of it was to collaborate. There's no point Steve Wilson writing everything, having already had like 10 years of or more of Steve Wilson solo stuff, and that was something he wanted to do. I always thought we were very compatible in terms of the direction we go in. We've got similar, actually we haven't got similar tastes, come to think of it, but we found a way that we could stimulate each other and kind of fire each other up into collaborating. So this new album really is the most collaborative of all the Porcupine Tree.
Because there was sort of because it was you two grooving, I understand, together, getting the bottom end and grooving together, which was the root of it.
Yeah, and I think the unusual thing was for Steve that he picked up the bass, and he plays the bass like a guitarist. He sort of thrashes it with a pick, and I think he felt this was a very unusual and right out of his comfort zone kind of thing to do, but he loves playing bass.
Yeah.
And so we started having jams, and a real kind of old school way to write songs, the two of you in the room playing, until we look at each other and go, oh, hang on, this is quite good, isn't it? Let's record it.
Question for both of you: how do you know if you're jamming around ideas? How do you know that something's happening? Does somebody go whoopee?
Oh, I think you just feel it. You just you look at each other. I mean, there's been times where I've worked on things that Bruce has already kind of down on. He said, "Oh, I don't know about this. Oh God, I don't know. I really don't know about this." And I can see something in it that maybe he couldn't see. So I work on it and I send it back to him, and then suddenly it's, oh, that's changed the whole perspective of it. Now I'm hearing this song as a whole different thing to what I sent you.
Yeah.
And, that would happen with Steve Wilson as well. We would jam, and then I would say, I think that's a really good bass line, Steve, but we need to do it at half that speed and in this time signature. There's something really good there. I think when you're a creative person, you're always waiting for that moment where you recognise something good is happening and you want to capture it. It might not be perfect, and it might be something that you're going to manipulate, evolve, develop, but there's a seed there of, oh, hang on, there's something special happening here. It's not right at the moment, but we can make it right.
I think that also sort of defines the benefit of the positive thing about a collaboration is that we've got tons and tons of ideas that me and Gavin have jammed over, And so many of them would have ended in the bin had it not for Gavin to say, oh, actually, how about this bit, Bruce? Actually, that bit you did, I reckon we can do this with it or do that with it. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to develop it in that direction. And then it becomes something. And whereas before, I would have just gone, that's gone in the bin, and forever it would remain.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just sparked by engineers joining the label, and the North Atlantic Oscillation remix of Subtober, which was one of my favourites, that both of those things did. I want to talk to you about, Bruce, about electronics in your music and electronics in the Pineapple Thief, and what Steve brings, and how that all works. Because with Gavin coming in, obviously you had the big muscular drummer, and there was a bit more of the kind of like rock element came back in. How does that work? Is it something that comes from guitar and drums, and then the kind of the MIDI has to be blended into it? I don't quite understand how that works in your music.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's always been a bit of a pot that we throw everything in at the begining. So the electronics have always been a part of it, and I think really that quite often now we always leave space for Steve to come in,
right?
But also, I might sort of throw some really basic electronic ideas down, and also Gavin's got his electric kit as well. So there's a lot of electric things that come from Gavin too. So yeah, it's a weird. If I stop to think how the process works between the four of us, it might start to go wrong, because it's just so natural. I don't really think about it, and it just ends up how it ends up.
Gavin, tell me about what it was like working with iamthemorning. I mean, it's been interesting following Mariana's journey, especially at the moment, as what with her being Russian. But they came essentially to the UK, and that journey started happening because of the group and the acceptance of the Russian embassy. I think it's an absolutely fascinating story. And I think you and Mariusz playing on Lighthouse was a really important part of that. How did that come around?
Yeah, Mariana wrote to me I think through Facebook.
All right.
And she posed it in quite a funny English. She said something about, I'm coming to England, what about sessions? And I didn't understand if she meant you're looking to be a session singer, or you want me to help you get sessions. And I wrote back to her and I said, could you just clarify what you actually meant? She said, no, I meant that we would like to have you play on our record.
Right.
And I said, what I say to everyone is, okay, look, before we talk about the money, or we talk about the availability or the schedule, let me hear the songs first, because if I can't make a good connection to the songs, it doesn't really matter what the money or the rest of the details are. If I don't like the music, I'm not going to do it. And she sent the demos, and I thought, wow, this is really good stuff.
Yeah.
And, once every now and then, once in a blue moon, someone sends me a load of demos. Sometimes I've never heard of them. I hadn't heard of her or I Am the Morning. And I just think, wow, I'd like to play on this. I can hear some real good stuff with it. And so it was all remotely done. They sent me the tracks, and I recorded the drums and sent them back.
Going to play a little bit of some Barbieri from Planets and Persona. What's he like, Gav?
Yeah, he's a miserable bugger. No, I mean, I've known Richard a very long time. I met Richard back in the late 80s, And again, I was a massive Japan fan. I really loved Japan. And I got to know Richard and Mick Karn and Steve Jansen, and I loved the three of them. And there was such magic that happened between those three. So, I don't think you'll hear better synth sounds than Richard can program. I remember him saying to me, when you buy a brand new synth, I wish it just came all flat with nothing on it, all zeroed, rather than, there's 10,000 patches. He said, because I don't want to use any of the standard patches. I just want to zero the whole thing and start from the ground up, which is, of course, what makes him special.
Bruce, Jonas and Wisdom of Crowds, and that was a really strange collaboration where some of the lyrics came first, where you're working with a singer, and then you and I have spoken many times about how you've developed as a singer. How did that come about? What was that like?
Well, the truth is, I was doing some stuff with Johnny Wilkes, who's the marketing director at Kscope, actually, and we were developing some songs together. And we knew that it needed to have a vocalist, the stuff that we were doing. And when I first joined Kscope, I went up to the offices and I came back with a load of free stuff, all the stuff that was on the label and a load of stuff that was on Peaceville. And Katatonia just really jumped out at me, mainly, well, obviously the songwriting, but his voice was just so beautiful. Right, yeah. I've never heard a voice like that in metal, anywhere actually, but in metal. It was just, it just shouldn't work, but it does. So I don't know what happened. We just said, if Jonas does it, that'll be great. And we somehow managed to make it happen. And he came to my studio for, must have been a week. And we just recorded all day, got on really well. And it was. You didn't know him. You'd not met him. Never met. No, never met. So it was the beginning of
as far south as he's ever been.
Yeah, yeah. So it was the beginning of something, because we've been friends ever since. I toured. I played with Katatonia when they did the acoustic tour. I've mixed a lot of their 5.1 and things like that. And me and my wife actually went over to Stockholm and went out on the town with Jonas and Mike from Opeth. And so it did start a nice friendship.
Is there going to be some more?
Everybody asks that, me and Jonas always talk about it, but he's always so busy. He's just so busy. But I hope so. I hope there's room for one more before the lights go out.
So my child, I will never leave you tonight. Open up your eyes and let them breathe. Sinful as I am, please take my hand. Let us lose our cares for life. tonight. Open up your eyes and let them weep.
For both of you then, one of the strangest collaborations I've ever come across, and I think probably the strangest arguably on Kscope, is the Uncovering the Tracks and the Give It Back sessions, where you're essentially your new drummer of your group comes in and starts fucking around with your old songs and adding grooves and making it bigger, making it smaller, and making them better in a way, I guess, making them more modern. Whose idea was that, Bruce? Who said, do you know what? Was it Gavin that said, do you know what? I've listened to all these tracks on Spotify, and do you know what? Let's do them again.
I think it was the fact that when we played live with Gavin, we knew that the back catalogue music was sounding very, very different. And it was when we played live, you could hear it, and the audience reacted to it. And you were talking about COVID and lockdown. Again, we were thinking, well, we've got our studios, we've got a hell of a lot of time on our hands. Let's go and do it. Let's go back and record these things, because we know how different that we sound. And so, yeah, it was definitely Gavin's idea. And he was the one who went back with a fresh pair of ears and had a listen to the rabbit hole that is Pineapple Thief back catalogue and came up with these songs. And a lot of them were really surprising choices. I could tell, actually, that the things that piqued his interest was a lot of the songs, which I didn't realise, the time signatures would jump around and just went back through and picked all these songs and we just recorded them, and it was a really, really enjoyable experience. But it was also really weird to go back to myself. That one of the earliest songs, 137, that we did was in 2002. So I found myself replaying it, re-singing it, and so it took me back.
Visiting, because you would be revisiting the subject matter of a much, much younger man.
Yeah, exactly. And also that a lot of the songs I've kind of thought, well, lyrically, the story the story hasn't ended, because how many 15 years have passed. So I had to actually write some more lyrics, because I say I can't leave it like this, because that's not how it ended. In fact, it had a happy ending. It wasn't a dark ending as it was.
Did you have any compunction with that, Gavin, when you were talking about a much younger man's intense lyrics? Were you looking at the lyrics as well? Did you have any problems with basically putting your fist into Bruce's very soul?
I mean, I think something I've learnt over the years of being a session musician is I've learnt quite good arranging chops. Things don't if the melody and the chords are nice, everything else can be turned into liquid and reformed. If the melody and the chords are nice, you could just sit and play it on a piano and it would be a good song. And I think that's true of any song. If the song relied so heavily on the sounds and the fashion of the time it was recorded, well, you can take all that out as well. You can take some, mid-80s track that's very programmed, all MIDI, and you can completely revisit it. And I think because I spent a few decades as a session musician working in studios with different artists and producers and arrangers, and they would be constantly trying to, no, let's do it like this. Let's put this section in 3. And because I've got more into composing, I would suddenly think, oh, do you know what? This song needs a middle 8. It hasn't got a middle 8. I'm going to write one, and then I'm going to send it to Bruce. And then I'll ask him, could you sing something over this new section? I mean, along the idea that Robert Fripp once told me, treat every song as if it was new, regardless of when it was written. So I would listen to a very old Pineapple Thief song on Spotify and think, right, imagine Bruce has just sent me that today.
It's a demo.
Yeah, it's a new demo,
wow,
right? Forget the drums, forget the bass line, forget all that stuff. What do you think? I think, yes, I like this song a lot. It's got great potential. I think it needs a third verse, and it needs a weird middle where we go off into another direction. And I think it's a bit ploddy because everything's in 6/8. So I'm going to make 1 bar 5, 1 bar 6, not to sound clever, but just to give it some rhythmic interest, and then we'll go into 6 when it gets into the chorus, and that will be, you know, that'll be the relief to the tension.
Wow.
So Pineapple Thief has actually brought out of me something that was been hidden in me for a long time, which was this urge to arrange. So like when I first played live with them, Bruce would say, "Oh, here's an old song, it was written with a drum machine, it's crap, don't play that, do whatever you like." And I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." And another thing Bruce said to me when I first started working with him is he said, "I like surprises." Now, most songwriters that I've worked with don't like surprises. They want it to sound very much like their demo. Hopefully the drums will sound a bit better than their drum machine, but don't mess around with it. I don't want it to be drastically different. And Bruce said, "Oh, I love surprises." So, you know, there's other singers and songwriters I've worked with. If I said to them, "Could you write a third verse? Could you sing some? I'm going to write a middle section." They'd be horrified. You absolutely butchered my creation.
This is what was, because I've spoken to you both individually about each other, and I've tried to get you to bounce each other, and you've both been incredibly nice at each other. None of my journalistic skills worked at all. So now I've got you together and we're doing a bro bounce podcast. Come on then, Bruce, what's the worst thing about him? You know, he comes stomping into your group, giving it the big I am, giving it the lobster,
smashing it up.
Yeah, and you're going, "Oh no, it's lovely."
Oh, I'm just too nice, aren't I? Yeah.
Yes.
No, I can't think of anything. I have to, you know, we've had quite a few tours, quite a long time on like a horrible bus in the States, but it was never that bad. Never that bad.
How come?
I don't
Gavin,
know.
Why have you? Wow, Gavin, what's the thing that winds you up most about Bruce? Then is it because he's too nice?
Oh, I can tell
you. He won't buy a new guitar.
Yeah,
and you have to go, "So buy this guitar."
Look, there's millions of things that I wind Gavin up.
I had to talk him into buying a guitar for I think the first American tour we ever did. I worked on him for about 3 years to buy a thing called a Variax.
Right.
Yeah, since I met him, since the very first tour, every song he changed guitar every single song, and it was a faff. And the guitar,
especially for a drummer, you don't change.
No,
snares
I don't
and
change
toms every
bass
single
drum
song.
in between songs. So the guitar tech would come running on with a different guitar every single time. You know, and there'd be mistakes. Bruce would forget to plug it in. He's handed him the wrong guitar in the wrong tuning or the wrong pedal board. And I said, "Bruce, you know what? There's this guitar called a Variax, and you can pre-program all these strange tunings that you like." Without actually, it's all done electronically.
Oh, right, so there's no machine head action.
There is a machine head. It is a normal guitar, but this very, very, very clever, intelligent electronic system means you can, with a flick of a switch,
God, it sounds really.
it will come out. It will come out with a different tuning. Even though acoustically the guitar's the same in E, you might be coming out the weird thing. And Bruce was like, "Yeah." I said, "You'd save taking about 12 guitars to America if you just bought this bloody thing." And eventually, after a lot of arm twisting, he did buy it.
I did.
The podcast started with Wilson, so we're now at 150. I'm going to finish with one of the most significant tracks that I've played, the Arriving Somewhere But Not Here, the Octane Twisted version, which I think, is just that, really nice way to dovetail the beginning and the 150 with Wilson. So both of you, Wilson, what's he like? Bruce, what's he like? Wilson, what's he like?
I've only ever sort of met him briefly backstage a few times when I was in the States. Nice guy. And for me, he's just ever since I first met him over email when we did Little Man in 2006, he's just always been, on the end of an email, offering advice in the early days, especially.
Wow.
Came to lots of gigs when we were playing in real dive bars in Camden.
Well, he gave you your big break in showbiz, didn't he?
Well, hooked me up with Kscope.
Yeah, and because you played with them, didn't you, early on?
Oh, we played with Blackfield.
Yeah.
Funny enough, we could have met. Might have met Gavin a lot sooner. We were asked to join to open for Porcupine Tree back in 2009, I think. But a few band members felt that we weren't ready, and we probably weren't, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so we never did.
So, Gavin, you know him quite well. What's he like? Why doesn't he wear shoes?
Yeah, that is weird.
Feel the pedal.
He had a few weird quirks. He was, when I first met him, the first 8 years that I was in Porcupine Tree, he did things like he brushed his teeth for about 15 to 20 minutes non-stop. And I'm not exaggerating. That isn't an exaggeration. He would just, and all the toothpaste would be in his mouth. He wouldn't spit it out. He would just keep brushing and brushing and brushing and brushing. And the other three of us will be looking at him like, this is insane. And I don't know if he still does that. I'll find out on the next tour.
Please do, yeah. Email me.
Yeah. And he drank a lot of milk. I remember that. And Jaffa cakes. He liked milk and Jaffa cakes. I think he's a changed man now.
Right.
He's a married man. He's a father. And funny enough, once we stopped kind of regularly working together in 2010, I think me and Steve actually grew closer. We had quite a few meetings. We both lost a parent in very close time. I think my mum died and his dad died about a month afterwards. And so we kind of grew up. We stopped being two silly little boys and we kind of grew up. And out of those more serious kind of getting to know each other meetings started the idea of why don't we actually have a jam together? We never tried to actually have a proper jam together.
Starting again,
so we kind of got to know each other and grew closer once the band stopped working.
Never stop the car on a drive in the dark. Never look for the truth in your mother's eyes. Never trust the sound of rain upon a river rushing through your ears. Arriving somewhere, but not here. Did you imagine the final sound as a gun? the smashing windscreen of a car. Did you ever imagine the last thing you'd hear as you're fading out was a song? Arriving somewhere, but not here. All my designs simplified. All of my plans compromised. All of my dreams sacrificed. Down the poison